Your child is really weak. Have you ever heard that about your child or being spoken about a different child? Now, Benjamin Bloom had heard this enough, and in 1984, he published a paper that challenged the idea that not all children can meet learning outcomes in a great way, and that there will be weak students who don't meet much outcomes, and average students, and good students. Now, what was this paper? He basically defined the way we do education today and called it conventional education. By his definition, it meant was a 1:30 environment where children are given marked on some tests periodically, right? Taught in the 1:30, marked on some periodic tests, and the pass mark is typically 40% or something like that. Now, what he did was show that, let's say, look at the bell curve of children who are performing in some way in this environment. Then he defined another kind of environment called mastery learning environment, where what he said was that same thing, 1:30, same teacher, everything same, but this time periodic tests would be given at a much shorter interval, and whatever was learned from that test would be used to give corrective feedback to the children. Now, what does this mean? What is not feedback is one tick mark or a check mark, done, good, very, very good. This is not feedback. Feedback needs to be very specific. Like, hey, over there in that answer, this is the mistake you made. Why don't we talk about it more? Or in this thing that you did, this is the specific mistake you made. Why don't you try again over here? So that's the kind of environment, same 1:30 that he provided in the mastery learning case. And he created a third group called tutored case, where it's a very small group of one-on-one tutoring, and on top of the mastery, where corrective feedback is given, just like I mentioned. Now, what blew everybody's mind was the differences that you see in the outcomes in each of these, right? It totally challenged the idea that this is how much children can learn. So what happened was that when you look at the mastery learning case, where it's still 1:30, but corrective feedback is given, children started performing one standard deviation better, as you can see in the graph, which basically means that about 15 children, say, would have reached some outcomes in the conventional schooling case. Here now, about 50 children will reach that. But what was totally mind-blowing and has almost changed the landscape of education since then is the study that in the tutored case, the children were showing 2 sigma improvement, which is basically 2 standard deviations. What that really means is that if you expect 2 children out of every 100 to reach some level in the conventional system, here, 50 children will reach that. And not just that, the remaining 50 will also be well above what would have been considered average. So the worst student will highly likely be better than the average of conventional schooling, conventional education. Now, ever since then, we've learned that this has huge impacts. We've learned that, the extent to which we underestimated how much students can learn. We've set a low bar of a low pass mark with no feedback, and we're just sticking to this. And even today, 99% of the children and parents I talk to are doing what is considered by Benjamin Bloom conventional schooling, and it's 40 years now. So for you, what would this mean? If you're a parent trying to decide what school to go, there are many criteria you can use, and the popular criteria today is which board does my child go to? And that's okay. It determines the content, the values to some extent, the ratios to some extent. But what you can really do to check whether am I sending my child to a conventional school? That's this list. What's your list? 1:30 ratio, tests given periodically with markings done with no corrective actions baked in, with no actionable feedback baked in. Second, you can check whether your school is a mastery learning school. Hey, the ratio might be high, but children are given active feedback and remedial time is kept aside, and the feedback is acted upon, and the bar is high. It's not 40% pass, it's 80% or more to move forward, and these numbers are approximate. Finally, you could check whether a school is a tutored environment, where it's a small group setting with personal one-on-one feedback wherever required for the corrective measures to be taken. That would be a new criteria you can use to select which school is good for you.